On this episode of A State of Control, we talk about the annual Harman Developers Conference, what it was all about, what the attendees got out of it, and what Harman is looking to be doing in the future. All that and more on A State of Control.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
A State of Control.
A State of Control, episode 61, Balance of Knowledge.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Atlas IED, innovative audio solutions for every business environment.
Welcome to A State of Control, an AVNation podcast that highlights the control, programming, and automation aspects of the audiovisual industry. My name is Steve Greenblatt. I'm your host. Thanks for joining us today. So a few times a year, and we recently had one, A State of Control covers an event or some industry news. And if you're new to the show, we typically try to make the episodes evergreen so that they can be listened to anytime, and they're content that can be valuable to all types of audiences. But this episode is going to be a little bit different, and we're going to talk about an event that recently happened called the Harman Developers Conference, which was in Richardson, Texas. And previous episodes on this event were number 49 and number 38, if you care to listen to those. So with me to discuss this event are some members who were in attendance, as well as someone who hosted us. And I'll first start with him. His name is Chris Backus from Harman. Welcome, Chris. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Steve. Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. And next is a returning guest who's becoming a regular on the show. He's a friend and colleague, and his name is Dave Hatz from AVI Systems. How are you, Dave?
Hey, doing great. Thanks for having me, bud.
Thank you. And last but not least, a newcomer to the show, but somebody that we know in the industry for some time, and he'll have some very interesting insight to share with us. His name is Jack Colasar, and he's from Fourth Bit. Welcome, Jack.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
You're welcome.
Pleasure to be here.
So we don't have Uncle Richie today, but we do send our regards to him, and he'll be joining us in the next episode. So the Harman Developers Conference typically provides a combination of training and personal interaction with some of the people from Harman that make things work, from product managers to technical support, to those who are able to give us some insight into the roadmap and the vision of the company. And programmers find this important because we really need to understand what's up and coming and what we need to be prepared for. So Chris, I'm going to let you kick us off. What goes into the planning of this type of an event, and what are some of the goals that you were hoping for us to accomplish?
Okay. Well, one of the things that we try and really provide is kind of a up-to-date look at some of the newest things that are happening in Harman, and really most specifically the AMX product line. And so what we try and do is look at some of the changes that have happened over the last year, both in the portfolio as well as in some of the APIs and technical capabilities of the product. And so as the team gets together to try and put an agenda together for it, we're looking at the first half of the week as far as some of the different longer format training courses. And this year we offered 2 different 3-day options. And so those courses represent some of the newer content releases that we've had from the training team. And then the back half of the week, we're looking at different roundtable discussions, like you alluded to, with different members of the engineering team and product management. And so those sessions usually are carved into different time slots that are really focused on either presenting outwardly to the group about new things, or trying to receive input from the group, the attendees, on maybe upcoming roadmap items that the teams internally are having questions about, and they want to go to a power user community to try and get those, disagreements settled. This year we had a number of those where it was really funny to see engineers point to project managers, and that look on their face just said it all, in terms of that solved a very long-standing dispute just by getting voice of customer in there.
So Dave, it sounds to me, in the way Chris put it, Harman was really looking to get input in bringing us there, as well as of course, offer education and offer insight. When you look to attend something like this, how important is that to be able to have that type of an audience?
It's huge because, I come from an integrator. And so we have, the ability to choose from lots of different products that in theory do very similar things. So understanding where a manufacturer is coming from in terms of the philosophy behind decisions they've made thus far, and also the roadmap of where they're going, to make sure that it aligns with the things I as an individual programmer am focused on, as well as the things that my company as an integration firm is focused on, is huge. The other thing that Chris was just talking about that I think really, to me personally, is huge, is getting in front of those who are building the product. Because all too often we run into it in our job as programmers, that we don't want to program something that's going to be of no use at the end of the day to our end user. Well, a company like Harman, if you talk with their developers, with their product managers, they want to make what is important to us. So having a forum for us to be able to say, as the power user community, here are the things that are important in the new product or the next generation platform or whatever they're focused on building. It helps them do a better job of delivering what we want. And at the end of the day, it gives us something that's more useful when it comes to market. So I can't stress enough how important, events like this really are.
So Jack, this was your first event as being an independent, right? But you've attended this in the past, as part of an integration firm. What do you think was one of or two of the more valuable aspects of it for you?
Yeah, well, this was only the second time that I've attended. 2 years ago was when I was attended with a company, and I think when they opened it up to solution masters to come down, and then wasn't able to attend last year. And this year I got to actually come down for the full week. So it was really cool because 2 years ago I just came down Thursday, Friday, which is the open forum where everyone, can just kind of spitball off each other and talk about, directions. And the first 3 days was the class I attended was for SVSI, and I already pretty well versed on SVSI, but it was still neat to learn some tricks of the trade and to talk to those guys and see how that product's being integrated with the video streaming solutions from AMX. And I actually really enjoyed that part, and picked up on it more than I thought I would coming down, which, I just had the opportunity to come down. Now that I'm independent, it's a little more flexible. So, but yeah, it was great. And I really enjoyed, the competition. They had a little hackathon competition thing. And that was really neat, and getting to meet everybody and seeing the direction of where things are going was extremely important because, this industry changes a lot, and it seems like it accelerates faster and faster and faster and faster, which is great. For people like us, I think we love that. But it's neat and important knowing what path Harman is going to take going forward. So,
I think Jack touched on something there too a little. The hackathon. You sit and say, okay, it's a competitive event. It's just a little fun, but what it also does is it really helps foster a community among the attendees. And what I mean by that is, I look at, I've been going to events like this for a number of years. And in the last month, I've had, outside of that conference, I've actually had discussions with 2 different attendees on problems I ran into in the field. So I hit a wall with trying to do things. And rather than call AMX tech support, I called what you'd really classify probably as a competitor of mine. And in both cases, they helped me through what I was trying to do. And so, events like this have a lot of, sort of informal value that they can bring too. Jack, I'm sure you've seen the same thing, that, by having others who are in the trenches with you, you can reach out to. That's valuable because when push comes to shove, it helps you get through a pitch.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool, actually, because who was on my team was Larry from Accent AV and Jesse from AVI SPL, I think. And Larry, I had actually hung out before at another manufacturers conference, and kind of got talking. I'm like, I didn't have his contact, and I tried to look him up before and forgot about it. And now it ended up being on his team, and it's just, and yeah, so we hooked up. I'm going to keep in touch, and I think that's really important. I mean, there's some local other programmers who I've talked to in the past here and there, and are around, but it's nice to be able to extend that reach to a far greater region. But that's pretty cool.
So Dave, I'll kind of follow up on what you and Jack both said, is that it's important to understand the direction and what we need to know. What are some of those themes, and is this consistent with what we're hearing from other sources?
Sure. Well, I mean, the last couple years, there's no secret about it, have been challenging for Harman. And I know there's always a lot of uncertainty, around where the company's going. Are they doing anything? And one of the things that I find valuable, for the last couple of years, and this year's no exception, is not, Chris and his team and the product teams are not shying away from answering that question. It's not we're going to leave it and just, it's the elephant in the room. They hit it head on that, no, we are working really hard. We've been through some rough times as a company, but they are working really hard, and here's the direction they're going, both in terms of products for the shorter term, but also in terms of revolutionary next generation, work, the next generation of platform that, all Harman products align to. That's, and to me, that's encouraging, because I've known AMX, I've known, purchased by Harman. They've been through, ups and downs, but they're a tried and true company. And to know that even through all the changes, there's significant innovation in the works. There's significant, product advancements, not just Me Too products in the industry, but products and platforms that advance the industry. And that's one of the things that, I've always respected out of Harman and AMX, is that thought leadership in the industry. And I was really encouraged to hear some of the details. We can't get into some of the details here because they're still too early, but really hearing that, Harman still is here, that there's a lot of innovation coming soon. That was really important. And to your question of, is it consistent? I think one of the things they hit on is that they're not doing a good job of getting out to the industry all the things they're working on, and they admitted that to us. And I think, again, that's important, because the first step in solving a problem is admitting that you have the problem. And so while the industry as a whole hasn't heard that message, for us is, again, that power user community to hear it and to be able to go back and share that, I look at it as much more than, I'm just drinking the Kool-Aid from from an event, but that really, there really are some cool things in the works.
Chris, I'll kind of give you the opportunity to chime in on this, whether you want to follow up on what Dave said, or you want to elaborate a little bit more about how do you follow up on something like this? Do we look to a year from now where we're going to be having another conversation, and what we talked about may or may not be what we would then talk about, or are there interim steps to be able to continue this type of dialogue and build not only the momentum but the anticipation for what's to come?
Right. Well, I think there'll definitely be some interim steps. As far as where we're at in our production schedule, what was exciting for me is that the attendees really got to see a good look at some next-gen software that's about to release. And so the exciting part was when you see everything that went into that solution, and I know this is ambiguous and vague for podcast listeners to hear about hypotheticals and things of that nature, but to me, as someone that was hosting a conference and could actually show working software, that was very exciting. And so there was obviously a suite of products that have to go around that. And so those will all begin to come out, as we see fit either at the next trade show cycle or what have you. But the tools are in place, and the exciting thing is that the tools have been baking for quite a while. So there's a lot of great things to come. And so that's the exciting part, is that there was actual working software, and we could get really into the weeds a little bit about how certain tools would work. And so I'm most excited about that. Now, as for where are we a year from now, I think we saw several phases, right? We saw software that's immediately pending release, and then we saw the next evolution of a couple of tools that would likely now be something we could have a similar conversation about next year, right? And so I'm expecting for a lot of what we discussed as far as user preferences and things like that to actually be in working software this time next year. So that's the exciting thing as we look forward to different product release schedules, is obviously you can't have things that require tools without tools. So as those release and come to market, the nice thing is that the community had a lot of input into how that would go. And one of the things that Harman is trying to focus on is really two key things I can share, which would be open APIs to let products be interoperable with not just our own solution, but with other solutions. But also in terms of, from a programming language standpoint, going back to standard languages. And so obviously, when Harman grew through acquisition, we brought on a number of different platforms. Each of them had their own control programming language, their own way of doing things. And so like Dave mentioned, we're seeking to unify that and create one standard language for Harman devices that would be using a modern language with modern tool sets. And frankly, we don't think we have to be in the IDE business anymore. And so the nice thing is that because we're going to open, modern standards and modern languages, if you're a programmer and you have tools that you like, there's a great chance you're going to be able to use those tools in whatever it is we have going forward. So I'm excited about that, that we're moving to standard modern languages. It helps not just from my role as the head of training and pro services. We don't have to train, as well as a proprietary language as much anymore, but also just because of the amount of resources that will be available to the community when you move to modern languages. And some of our competitors have already seen those benefits as you look at maybe Python or C#. And so I think everyone that's touching those languages can attest that it's extremely valuable and helpful to have a world outside of just Pro AV who can help with a particular coding challenge.
Jack, I'll kind of follow up with you on this, based because Chris gave us a lot there, and I think that was all. It's all really exciting stuff. I think for most programmers, everybody was pretty engaged, both at the event, and I think that a lot of these types of discussions we've been having for some time. How important is it that we have a modern programming language support, and what does that really do for a programmer? Because there's one of the things that I see is that it has a lot of power, but it's also going to create some separation between those that are true software developer programmers and those that are more just AV programmers.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's huge. It's just we've been stuck in a box for so long with proprietary tools, and you've gotten to see where software has gone, where software development's gone through the years, and just be like, oh, I wish I could have done that with one line, but can't, right? I mean, I've got to get a lot more remedial about that. And so the power that's behind most modern languages is, when that's unleashed, it just makes things so much easier for everybody. I mean, it's one thing to have your own set of libraries where, or tools that you go to work within a proprietary development like NetLinks or something like that. Whereas you might go to forums and share some code here and there. Well, I mean, if you've got a language like Python, I mean, where you can just, literally just type a couple things in Google and there's your entire answer right there. And it's just, it's such a huge community out there. And I think that that's extremely important in the AV industry to go down that path, and not just with just picking a language, but just keeping everything open. Because, I mean, if you look at like the modern programming languages, like very successful, like Python, well, I mean, Python's not super successful because like O'Reilly wrote some page turner that you can't get out of your hand. I mean, it's popular because it's very approachable and because you've got a $5 Raspberry Pi computer that anybody can get, right? So you can just get that hardware and start playing around with it, and it's easy to access that. So not having a dealer login to get software that you need for that's what's going to help grow this industry. I think just keeping it open.
Dave, as we talk about the term open, and Chris touched on the open API aspect of things, how important is that? Because there's some type of sense of security in these closed systems that everything is supposed to work together. But then when you have an open API, although it unleashes power, with power comes risk and so forth. What's the best way of approaching something like that?
Well, I think it's important. I mean, we are an integration industry. We bring the right boxes, the right software tools, the right building blocks together to deliver an outcome, to drive an experience for our end users. That's what we do as an industry. And so the more that the products we use can have the flexibility to communicate to the best of breed. And so if that means I'm using, a product from Harman with a product from another company with a product from another company, and at the end of the day, that delivers the best result for the application my customer has, that's the best we can hope for. And so, it's a discussion, we've had for many years, and we've been doing it for many years with, if you think about it, if display manufacturers 30 years ago had said, nope, I'm only going to work with my stuff. Well, guess what? We wouldn't have sold that manufacturer because we wouldn't have been able to turn it on from our touch screen, from our button controller, from our one touch to join room. So, the idea of Harman saying that, as they move forward, they really want to foster this open API for all of their products. I think it's an important business decision for them. And personally, I think it's the right business decision because it keeps them relevant in any discussion where their name could possibly appear, not just the ones that say, I want to be only in the Harman ecosystem. I want to work exclusively, or I want to have a preference for working exclusively in a Harman ecosystem. They're accepting that there's going to be times where that's not the right fit for an integrator, for the end user. And they're saying, okay, we're going to allow a subset of our products to work really easily and really well with any other system. And again, that's just, I can't emphasize enough how valuable that is. And if we can get the rest of the industry to follow suit with that, now we're able to do some really cool stuff in a little bit less time.
I think Dave is spot on with that summary of where we're at. And if you think 10 years ago, when 232 was king and video companies were video companies, control companies were control companies, it allowed integrators to just put the best of breed in there and let the best product win. And then we're a victim of this as well, where we, propagated this entire closed ecosystem as we grew the portfolio, but made things work certain ways, within that ecosystem. This is a change to really open that up again to say, may the best product win. And so I think Dave is spot on that gives integrators the flexibility that they want in system designs to allow whatever the customer needs, and it puts the burden back on the manufacturer to have the best product, not necessarily the most dominating ecosystem or what have you that might dictate it in today's model and paradigm. And so pretty excited about that as we go forward.
So, Chris, I had a question for you following up on this conversation that is taking a little bit of a turn, but being that training is under your jurisdiction at Harman, and we know how that has evolved, and the structure and the certification and the real the qualifications that you need to really be able to work with Harman products. In going down the road of opening things up a bit, do you foresee that still being the case, or do you do you see that? How do you see training changing within Harman?
That's a great question. Today, we teach a proprietary language with NetLinks. We also teach an open language with JavaScript for the SVSI product line. And so I expect to continue to teach a proprietary language for folks that are in that ecosystem and want to continue with that language. I'm not expecting the product line to change in terms of its openness to that language, but we do expect it to also take on the ability to be leveraged with a different modern language. So as a manufacturer, where I sit, I have to continue to do both, right? I have to teach my proprietary world because no one else will do that. But then I also have to teach the next gen modern language, like we've been doing with Java as well. So I guess we teach 3 right now. And so the challenge is I have to equip our partners with the tools needed to be successful with our product. However, as we move forward in those modern languages, there are just other ways and other places people could get that information. So if I just have a library for JavaScript users or for Java or for Groovy, whatever we're going to end up going with there for that language, if I have a library, I've got to be able to support that library. And so we'll do some teaching here, but the nice thing is that you now have options, be it just-in-time learning for what it is for your project or other resources that people could pull in from the marketplace, be it college or be it just anyone that's available that would be someone of that skill set. And so as a manufacturer with training, I don't expect it to change all that much from what we're currently doing. The language may swap out just based on whatever the product line goes with, but other than that, we're still going to continue to offer it.
And do you see the idea of being certified still being a responsibility, or do you see Harman as being the one who determines that type of a certification?
Well, great question. As far as the certification side, I firmly believe you should be certified to sell our product. Today, there is no physical hard requirement on that, but I believe that you're most successful, most productive, and it's the best use of employer time if that individual is certified with a demonstrated proficiency within our product line. So I don't expect that to change in terms of Harman offering a certification, and that certification represents that an individual has demonstrated a certain set of skills that represents they're successful and profitable with our product. And so I will still continue to offer that. I'm not necessarily certifying that you are modern language proficient. I'm certifying that you're proficient with our product. And if that's the mechanism that you use to get there, then you still demonstrated the needed outcome for the customer experience we're trying to deliver.
I accept that. that sounds like a very reasonable compromise.
Well, it's separating out the difference between can you write the lines of code in the right order and get the result, one way versus another, or again, are you delivering that result, that experience, that outcome that the client is looking for? And at the end of the day, that's the most important piece to Harman, I would imagine, is making sure that that the customer is receiving the value that they asked for.
Absolutely.
Jack, I'll kind of bring you in as we wind down. Looking forward, what is important to you in the events such as these, and what keeps you coming back?
I mean, looking into the future does, for sure. And I think one of the things that's great and that was stressed is that Harman is there to be leaned upon, as far as like there are a lot of programmers out there who know those proprietary languages and only know those proprietary languages, whether that's NetLinks or Simple or whatever. And I think Harman has made a commitment going forward that there's going to be a path. And so for those who maybe aren't as familiar with formal programming languages, that there's going to be a way to kind of mature into these new product lines. And I think that's very important because, for one, it has to happen. The AV industry is large, and there's not a ton of traditional programmers within the AV industry. And but within the AV industry, there's people who are extremely knowledgeable about AV, and that needs to stay that way. And I think that coming to these conferences allows you a path towards where the company is going to be going in the future, and it prepares you for that. And so I think it's definitely crucial.
Dave, one of the as we wrap up, Jack touched on AV and programming. What do you think is more important for a programmer moving forward? Is how do you look at that balance of knowledge to be successful?
It's got to be a balance. It's got to be a balance. At the end of the day, if you are a programmer and have no clue what AV is or how the devices interact and how they operate, you're going to have a real tough time delivering a rock solid, always works experience for our end users. At the same time, if you're just an AV guy, we've seen that many of the programmers in our industry have learned, our design engineers or even technicians who have learned programming. And again, we see it's a challenge. It takes time, and there's training available to help you, but it takes time to build that skill set. And so, I look at it as, the core tenets of what we do are not changing. We're still delivering the right experience to our end users. We're using different boxes every year. So in a lot of cases, we're using fewer boxes, but we're more networked than we were 10 years ago. We're talking much more about software than ever before. But at the end of the day, you still have to have an industry experience, marry it with the ability to, some level of software, call it configuration, development, full software developer. Depending on the application, you might need any of those, but you still got to marry them together and to really be successful. And that's not going away. And, I think Jack hit on the fact that there is going to be a path with Harman as they introduce new languages and new support and grow what they can do. There's going to be a path for those who are already at this level to continue at this level and then gradually progress as they're ready and as they see the business need. And that's what's going to make all of us successful in the end.
And Chris, we'll wrap up with this. One of the themes that came out in this discussion was community and how we can learn from each other, and that's one of the assets and one of the byproducts of going to an event like this. How do you see this community growing, and are there any ways that Harman can help to foster that?
Well, I think continue to offer forums like this where people can get together outside of a stressful job site environment or a busy trade show environment. I think it's very helpful to the community. Most programmers are always the behind the scene guy. You may be the remote PC guy, but you're rarely out in front and leading a project and having communication with a lot of externals. And so this provides a really needed community and conversation, water cooler kind of talk environment for people to just throw ideas around, ask if, like Dave mentioned, if you've ever had this problem, or now people's strengths outside of just maybe a credential that they have on a website or a LinkedIn profile. You really get to know people. And as Jack mentioned, he was there all week. Really encourage folks that can make it stay for the whole week. We try and put together some pretty great activities that really get you out of the classroom and really into a fun environment where you can just relax and just share conversation and network to build your personal network, your personal brand, but also just kind of learn from others, which is really the exciting part. And so as far as how do we grow that community, this event is open to members of the AMX Valued Independent Partner Community, a series of independent programmers. It's also open to holders of the AMX Solutions Master credential. And so that's someone who has basically 5 AMX certifications. And so, you have 12 months to finish those out if anybody wants to get ready for the 2020 event.
Very good.
I'm going to throw a shout out really quick to Chris because, I've been going to these events for a long time. And this year, Chris managed to give us what is without a doubt the largest swag, both physical in size and in weight, of anything by far that I've ever received. So, JBL gave us all their Party Box 300 speaker, which is a Bluetooth speaker about yay high for those watching on the video here. And that thing has some awesome sound, a whole lot of power. And, not that we go to these events for the swag, but Chris, you've outdone yourself, my friend.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
Thank you.
Chris.
No problem. We take swag seriously here in Harman Pro University, and I'm glad you guys really enjoyed that one. Like I said, I spent a lot of time thinking about what attendees would, find utility in. You can always get a pen, you can get a Chotsky. That is nice. It might sit on a desk, but when you're leading the block party with your Party Box 300 because you're dominating your neighborhood for Bluetooth speaker game, it's pretty cool. So I'm glad you guys enjoyed it, and I'm glad you liked the product. So thank you.
That's a great way to end this. And thank you, Chris. We all appreciate that. I'd like to thank everybody for being a part of today's show. First, I'll start with Dave Hatz from AVI Systems. How can people get in touch with you and learn more about AVI?
Certainly stop by avisystems.com. Myself, my email is dave.hatz, H-A-T-Z, at AVI Systems. You'll find me on the Twitters, on LinkedIn, all that. Just search me out. But again, thanks for having us. A great discussion. And again, thanks to you, Chris, for hosting us for this.
I agree with that. Jack Colasar from FourthBit, how can people get in touch with you and learn more about your company?
I'm on the interwebs. So, you can find me at jack@fourthbit.com, email-wise, or fourthbit.com. It's the number 4, thbit.com.
Very good. And last but not least, Chris Backus from Harman. How can people get in touch with you, learn more about what you're doing? You're in a new role now. I don't know if you want to share that a little bit. And you can also tell us how to learn more about Harman Pro.
Thanks, Steve. No, I've recently been asked to take on a little more responsibility, and so I'm now heading up training as well as professional services. We have a great team of about 30 folks that are underneath us, working to make sure that everyone has the content they need to support the new products that we're putting out here at Harman and deliver those for some of our customers with our pro services team. As far as how to reach me, you can reach me at AV Control Guy on Twitter or on LinkedIn. We're happy to connect with anybody out there that wants to learn more about me or about Harman. And as for Harman, harman.com.
Very good. So my name is Steve Greenblatt. I can be reached at my company's website, Control Concepts, at controlconcepts.net, or on social media at Steve Greenblatt, pretty much every platform. But most importantly, come and check us out at the AVNation website. That's avnation.tv, where you can find the show and the other shows from weeklies to monthlies covering the commercial or residential aspects of the AV industry. I'm a big listener of the Connected show as well as the AV IT show or ITAV. I get that confused, but both nonetheless, it's a good show and it can provide some value to this audience. While you're at the website, please check out the supporters who help to make AVNation possible and financially support these shows as well as attendance at different events. We'd also like to hear from you, so please reach out to me, reach out to Rich Ragosa, who's not with us this week, but we'll be back. We want to hear what you guys like and what we should be doing more or less of. So please reach out or leave us a review. Otherwise, that will be it for this episode of A State of Control.